Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective of nutritionrestored.com. And my new network can be found at nutrition-restored.mn.co. So it's my mighty network, where we can talk about all these things in our own little social network and not have to be doing it on other social media giants that are not being so nice about sharing things these days. So anyway, what I wanted to do today was go over a thing that I came up with called 50-50 salt that I found really helpful for getting people's potassium intake up while still keeping their food tasting good and just helping them in all the ways that potassium can. Potassium deficiency is connected to, you can go and Google potassium deficiency in diabetes and potassium deficiency in hypertension. Potassium deficiency can play a role in a lot of things. So what I wanted to do today was just go over the 50-50 salt recipe, some of the basic things about potassium and how to use this stuff. So first, the recipe. Well, first let's go over potassium. How much are we supposed to get? Generally, if you kind of look at the government's recommendations on potassium and sodium in a day, it comes out that you're supposed to get about, as an adult, 4,700 milligrams of potassium in a day, 4.7 grams. That's a lot. When you consider that a banana is 500, you're going to be eating 9.5 bananas in a day to get your potassium? Probably not. So, but getting enough potassium, if you want to know if you're potassium deficient, try finding some high potassium foods that you do well with and eat more of them for a short while and see if you feel better. If you do, just realized my mic wasn't on. So hopefully all that, you could hear it and now you won't have turned up so much. So anyway, 4,700 milligrams is a lot of potassium, but the easy way to find out if potassium is going to help you is to simply increase it from foods first. With all of this, we'd rather not have to go to supplements or even 50-50 salt if we don't have to. So if you can get it from foods, try it through foods first, high potassium foods. My favorite ones, peeled potatoes. Always peel your potatoes. All the toxins are in the peel, not the nutrients. And bananas are a good one. Fresh coconut water is a lot better for you than the bottled stuff, but these are things that you can try to see if more potassium will benefit you. And then sodium intakes generally somewhere between around 2,500, maybe 3,000. But if you do the math on those, it's about 2 times as much potassium as sodium. The reality of most of our diets in America today and many places in the world is that we're not even getting as much potassium in a day as we're getting sodium. So we're definitely not getting twice as much. And then we have, and thyroid problems are also linked to potassium deficiency. In hair analysis, a high calcium to low potassium ratio, a high calcium to potassium ratio, which would mean calcium is significantly higher than the potassium, is what they call the thyroid ratio, and that leans towards hypothyroidism. So potassium is very, very important. How are people getting these massive potassium deficiencies? Vitamin D supplements directly cause people to lose potassium through their kidneys. I have the rat study. Vitamin A, most people know me as being the anti-vitamin A guy because vitamin A is not a vitamin, it's a poison. Vitamin A blocks your potassium channels in the cells. I have the paper on this too. So between people taking a supplement that directly causes them to lose potassium and between another vitamin that's in food or in supplements or in pharmaceuticals or in their cosmetics or wherever, vitamin A causes their potassium channels to become blocked. That's a really bad recipe for a lot of potassium problems. So how can we help to get more potassium in? The recipe. It's quite simple. First, you need some regular salt. I have a whole salt video on this channel about what I want people to get in a salt. My 2 rules on salt is it must be 1, bright white in color, not gray, not pink, not pinkish with red and blue flecks, white in color. And the next one's even more important, is that it only has 1 ingredient. That could be salt, that could be sea salt, that could be sodium chloride, but we want these 2 things together. So if you wanted to send me, a message and say, hey, is this salt okay? I'm going to say, is it bright white in color? And does it only have one ingredient? So if somebody says, well, I got a bright white salt, but it has these other ingredients in it, these drying agents, does that fit the 2 rules? No. If somebody says, well, I got this gray salt, does that fit the rules? No. Okay. Bright white in color, 1 ingredient. Now, if you're going to make the 50-50 salt, because the potassium chloride powder that I use is very, very fine, you do not want to be using, there's other salts that people can use there's Diamond Crystal Kosher salt is a good one. There's Morton's Canning and Pickling salt is a good one. These are bright white salts, 1 ingredient, but they're really big flakes. These do not mix well with the fine powder of the potassium chloride powder, so you don't really want those because then they kind of separate like popcorn and the kernels. They don't stay together. So you want a finely ground salt, a fine salt. My favorite salt for this, for those of you in America who have access to Costco, is the Kirkland Pure Sea Salt. It is bright white. It has 1 ingredient. It is a fine ground salt, and it works really well. So first you have the salt. Next, you get potassium chloride powder. This is plain potassium chloride powder. That's it. Well, it does have a little bit of magnesium carbonate in it. Not the worst thing in the world to have a little bit of magnesium carbonate in there, but it helps it to flow better. So we got those are the 2 main ingredients. The 3rd ingredient is cream of tartar. Cream of tartar is potassium bitartrate, or potassium bound to tartaric acid. I believe what I've read is that it comes from, they scrape it off the inside of wine barrels. You know, when they're making wine, it's kind of a deposit that happens on the side of the wine barrels, and they scrape it off. So technically it's a natural product, and it's used in baking. Most of you will find it in, your spice cabinet, or, if anybody who bakes usually has cream of tartar around, but you can buy it on the internet. You just buy a little bottle. It's in the spice section of your grocery store. It does not need to be organic. I don't know if you can get it organic. Not super important. You're using so little of it. So what is the recipe? So I'm going to start with the potassium chloride. This is 8 ounces. I'm not going to convert everything for you European folks because you'd be buying the same bottle of this and you can do it the same way. So we got 8 ounces of potassium chloride powder. You're going to get a ball jar, mason jar, some kind of jar that seals well, that's glass, preferably not plastic, right? Even though this comes in plastic. We'd like to use glass because it doesn't have the microplastic issues. So this is 8 ounces. You dump this into your jar. I'll use this as my jar. You dump it into your jar. Then you're going to add the same amount of bright white, 1 ingredient, finely ground salt. So you could even use this, look in here, see how much is in there. Fill this up again with that same amount of salt, regular salt, and add that to the mix. Finally, you're going to add 1/4 teaspoon, not tablespoon, 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar into that mix. Put the top on, shake it up real well. You have made 50-50 salt. It's basically, it's not an exact mixture, but it is pretty much 50% sodium, 50% potassium. What this does is, and you use it on your food, you can use it on your food like normal salt. Salt your food, you can use it in cooking, you can use it anywhere you use normal salt. Now, troubleshooting it. Some people don't want to mix it up. And so what they do is they get the potassium chloride and they might salt their food with normal salt first and then kind of put some potassium chloride on their food after that. That's totally legit. The thing about potassium chloride powder is that it can have a bit of a bitter or metallic taste to it, depending upon your taste buds. The cream of tartar combined with the salt basically eliminate that. If you buy some of those salt substitutes at the grocery store, it might be all potassium chloride, but they have all sorts of things in there to help mask the flavor, because potassium chloride, the reason we don't use it as salt is because it's got some off taste to it. But if you mix it with sodium chloride salt, that goes away. So you just mix it up, put it into a normal salt shaker, use it like normal. Okay, troubleshooting this. First, as I say with anything that you ever use, if you don't feel good, if you try this and you don't feel good on it, then don't use it. This is the same with any food or any supplement, and any practitioner who tells you different should not be listened to. If you don't feel good on something, it's not going to suddenly all of a sudden change. If you try it and within an hour you don't feel good, then don't use it. Maybe you don't need extra potassium. Maybe you don't get along with tartaric acid. There could be all sorts of biochemical reasons why you don't get along with it. So if you don't get along with it, don't force it. Next, it's about 50-50 mix. Some people may want more salt in there, because if you're super sensitive to taste, then your body may not like the 50-50 mix. So what I tell people to do with this is you simply, if the taste is an issue, which is rare, but it happens, you simply add more salt to the mixture. You know, you might make it 60-40, you might make it 75-25, until it tastes okay to you or feels okay to you. And that's great. That's just a different mixture. You're still getting more potassium than you would have otherwise. Now, finally, we have an approach that I came up with to help people get more potassium in their day-to-day eating. Now, I'm a doctor. I'm not your doctor unless you're working with me. So I'm not giving you any advice to do anything here. What you choose to do with this information is completely on you. I'm not telling you to do anything. Okay? We came up with this thing called the teaspoon technique, which was basically in the morning, you would measure out, you get a teaspoon of your 50-50 salt, put it in a little bowl or a ramekin, you know, that you can have on your counter or at work or whatever. And then through the day, you would simply, your goal would be to use that salt on foods, however you choose to use it. In drinks, some people would say, can I add it to water or a little bit of juice or whatever to get it down? Yeah, that's fine. You would just get in that teaspoon over the course of the day. So what that is, I'm going to give you an approximate number. So people want to calculate this all out, you can. I'm not saying this is exact. It's about a teaspoon of the 50-50 salt is about 1,500 milligrams of sodium and 1,500 milligrams of potassium. So with that 1 teaspoon of 50-50 salt, you have added basically the equivalent of almost 3 bananas of potassium to your day. That's quite a bit. So anyway, that's the 50-50 salt recipe. What I wanted to go over a little bit is some of the common deficiency symptoms that I see with potassium. And can you overdo potassium? Sure. I mean, potassium supplements, it's very hard to overdo because they're 99 milligrams per pill. That's their limit that they can make. Does that mean that potassium is horribly unsafe? No, it means that people did dumb things in the past with potassium, and they thought taking potassium would detox them. You can go and find these case studies on PubMed. They thought they would take a bunch of potassium, and detox themselves. Like they were taking potassium like people do with magnesium to give them the runs. Like they were detoxing. And some of them drove themselves hyperkalemic, excess potassium. And they went to the hospital. I'm pretty sure a couple of them died. But they were taking, this was back when they probably had 500 milligram pills and 1,000 milligram pills, and people were taking 40 of these things a day. So they were taking 4 grams of just supplements, or actually one study I saw was 14 grams of potassium in a day. 14 grams, not just 1,500 in a teaspoon of the 50-50 salt. And the other thing about the 50-50 salt that protects you is the biggest problem with potassium comes about when it's not balanced with potassium. This is why the people who took the supplements damaged themselves, caused problems, because they were taking way too much potassium without balancing it with sodium. Well, the 50-50 salt is 50-50 sodium, 50-50 potassium. So it's really hard to get way too much potassium when you're also putting in that much sodium. See what I'm saying? So we had really good results with the 50-50 salt, and people liked it because they could just get more potassium in their diet without thinking about it. So some of the symptoms that we see, a super obvious low potassium symptom is cramps in your feet or calves at night. If you are getting cramps in your feet or calves at night, you very likely have a potassium deficiency. That's a pretty simple one. Other ones I've seen that we've helped with potassium, it doesn't mean this is the solution in every case, but if you go to bed, if you have trouble falling asleep initially, that could be a potassium deficiency, especially if you lay down to go to sleep at night and you can feel your heartbeats either excessively fast or kind of irregular. or especially irregular and fast, and you're laying in bed and you can't fall asleep. You could try and go eat a banana, see if that fixes it before you make the 50-50 salt, just to see if that helps. Or some of the 50-50 salt might help in your diet to get that potassium up so you don't have that problem. I've seen depression helped by potassium. I've seen anxiety helped by potassium. I've seen thyroid problems generally not fixed, but improved by potassium. So, and obviously energy would fit into that one. So potassium, just getting it up can help a lot of things. Remember I said about the causes of potassium deficiency. First of all, it could be your diet. You know, if somebody's on a super high meat, all meat diet, they may not be getting enough potassium. This could be why there are some long-term studies out there on low carbers where they tend to get more diabetes as 10 years of doing it. There's no potassium in a super high meat diet or an all meat diet. There's just not really any there. There is sodium in meat, and then what do people do to the meat? They salt it. So if somebody was on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet and they wanted to add some no-carb potassium, because it's really hard to get potassium without eating carbs. If they wanted to get some no-carb potassium in their day, they could use the 50-50 salt. I think that's about it. If you had questions on this video, you know, you can come at the network I mentioned, my new mighty network at nutrition-restored.mn.co. This would be a place where you can come and answer this. I don't do comments on YouTube because I find the comments on YouTube to not be really helpful for anybody. So that's what I got for you today. Just wanted to do a short video. I'm going to be trying to get more of these videos out on a regular basis. My name is Dr. Garrett Smith, the Nutrition Detective. I hope you find this helpful, and I will hope to see you again on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell and share this with your friends. Bye.